Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Hi, I'm Dale Beaumont and welcome to Secrets Exposed. This is the show that takes you up close and personal with world-leading business experts. And our topic for this interview is how to innovate in a fast-moving world. That coming up in just a moment. Welcome to Secrets Exposed. I'm Dale Beaumont, and joining me here in the studio is best-selling author and innovation expert Andrew Grant. And our topic for this interview, how to innovate in a fast-changing world. Andrew, welcome.
Thanks.
All right, so we're talking about innovation. Before we get into it, I know we've got heaps of great content to share, and we've got a 300-page book in front of us, and we're going to get some of the gems out of that book in a moment. But why do companies need to innovate? What are maybe 4 or 5 concrete reasons why we need to innovate?
Well, we've seen in our research, and also research done by many of the big consulting companies, is there's better productivity, better decision making, faster to market, quicker at what they're doing. And I just read that the top 25% of the most innovative companies outperform the market by 2 times faster than anyone else. And the companies that have purpose in their innovation, a reason for it, not just innovating for the sake of it, even perform higher than that. And then the opposite side of that is if we don't innovate, where are we left? We're left selling typewriters in an episode that is, come and gone. We have to keep up in touch with what we're doing today.
All right, great. Any other reasons why we should be innovating?
Well, you can see on this world map here, this is the global innovation map. Ironically, it is done by an American company, and that's why they've given themselves the highest score. And we're talking about technical innovation, so let's not be too insensitive to some of the people that don't believe that map. But you can see the countries that have innovated the fastest and who's very strong in innovating and who's not. And whether you call that progress or not is probably time for another episode. But from from a business perspective, keeping up with things, we need to innovate just to stay in the race. So our book's called The Innovation Race. We kind of have a bit of an irony that it is a race. If we don't keep up, we do get eliminated, just like those reality TV shows that we see.
I think the big takeaway there is outperforming the market 2 times, the ones that have innovation at their culture as opposed to ones that don't.
That's right. The companies that have innovation as their culture will stay ahead. We've seen over and over again, and I know this will come up as one of the questions, that the companies that didn't innovate, that sat back, even those companies with what they call a premium position captivity, they thought they were number one, like Nokia, felt they could sit back and watch it all happen. And I remember seeing an interview with the Nokia CEO. He said, "We don't know what we did wrong. We didn't do anything wrong, but they didn't innovate.
They didn't do anything.
They just continued doing what they were good at doing."
All right, now the conversation around innovation, is it just for big companies or the small to medium-sized businesses? Should we be concerned and worried about being more innovative?
Well, that's right. When we talk about innovation, we tend to look at the big companies and we tend to look at Silicon Valley. And my banks say to me, if I hear another story about Google or Apple, I'll shoot you. Can you give me something more realistic for my industry? Because banking, for example, they don't want to be innovative in terms of what they think that the tech companies are doing. So let's take that to another level. What about SMEs? So I'll give you an example. We have an investment unit just down the road, which is Holiday Let, and the company, the small husband and wife company that's probably 2 generations old, has been renting our holiday apartment for some time, and they've done a fantastic job, and there's nothing wrong with it. Now, Airbnb, as we all know, and it's probably an overused thing, but this is really, right for me, has come into the market and basically created incredible supply and demand change within the market. That's innovation. They have come up with a better model. They've come up with a more efficient model. They've come up with a more trusting model. But my concern is the holiday letting people that I'm using, their attitude is, well, I hate Airbnb. I don't like Airbnb. I said, sure you don't. They've just almost done you out of business. But this is just a small family-run business that is being done out by a large conglomerate. And we're seeing this happen over and over again. And here I am, normally go out to the big companies at a very high hourly rate. I'm sitting in their office saying, well, what is it that we do best? Meaning, what is it that you do best? What can you do that Airbnb can't do? What value offer can you give that maybe a more generic Airbnb can't offer.
It's
So
very
the small
interesting.
companies need to understand, I mean, we've got Amazon, getting bigger and bigger in Australia.
Because you're not necessarily competing with other small businesses anymore.
Not at all.
Even Amazon's, coming into domestic markets as well.
That's right.
And now
so what's going to happen to the small shops? But here's the funny thing. I mean, one of our big clients is Mercedes-Benz Daimler, and I know they're not an SME, but 10 years ago, would have they thought they were going to be competing against Google or Apple with the driverless cars? They thought they were competing against BMW and Audi. Now, right over here, another group's come in, and I think the danger with small business owners is that they end up they might be directly competitive, like the holiday rental might be competing with another holiday rental in the same region. They haven't seen Airbnb come in.
And especially now as more businesses are moving online, you're not just dealing with local competitors anymore. You've got national competitors
That's right.
in another state or even another country that now, because of the internet, are coming into your market, your backyard.
And you can't compete with Airbnb on their terms. They're too big, they're too good, they've got the model right. But, let's take the other overused example of Uber and taxis. I mean, what was the taxis' response in Australia when Uber came in? They went on strike. And there was press that they beat the Uber drivers up.
And it was the same in France.
It's not quite a way to say, hey, we're really good. Now, if you look at the model Uber did, what is it as a customer-centric, as a customer, what is it that we struggle with taxis? They're not always on time, they're expensive. I mean, you ask people, the list is a mile long. So where are taxi drivers not threatened by Uber? Singapore and Tokyo. You ask the Singapore taxi drivers, are they threatened by Uber? They go, no. As a matter of fact, they say it just helps us raise the game. And Singapore taxis work well. So in that sense, Uber is not a threat when the model's working well. But these disruptive companies, they come in and disrupt an industry, will come in if we've become complacent. So all Airbnb and Uber have done is they've taken a model and made it better from the customer perspective. So rather than my holiday rental people saying, I don't like Airbnb, I don't want to use them, I said, you've got to use them. We should be saying, what have they got that we don't have, and what can I offer that they can't offer? And maybe it is personalised service.
Some great questions there. Now let's talk about the cost, because some people think, it's going to cost me a lot of money to innovate, or they think they have to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in new technology. But innovation, does it always have to cost a lot of money?
Well, I'm going to use an example of hotels. We work a lot with hotels, and your large five-star hotel might spend millions and millions of dollars renovating their property. And how much more luxurious can you make some of these hotels? But how much does good service cost? I've been to hotels, little 3-star hotels in Nepal that have had better service than 5-star hotels. The best-selling hotel on TripAdvisor in Vietnam is a 2-star, 3-story walk-up, competing against the Hyatt. I think service doesn't cost anything. I think renovations cost a lot of money. The mistake we make when we think we've got to innovate is we've got to have a swanky office, we've got to create the football table and the slippery slide that Google's got and renovate our office. But as we'll get to later on, that doesn't work. What doesn't cost money is creating a culture of innovation. And that comes down to the leader, not the hardware. What doesn't cost money is a good service within a hotel. And that doesn't need to be a 5-star hotel. That can be a little tiny one in Vietnam.
Now, you've written 2 books. One of them is the Innovation Rate, which you've mentioned. Another one is a book around creativity. I think it's called Who Killed Creativity?
That's
so
right.
Innovation and creativity, are they the same thing to you, or are they different things? And can you explain what the difference
Well,
is?
they are different, and we've got a rather complicated model up here. You can perhaps have a look at it at a later stage. First of all, we want to theme our books because we want them to be memorable. I remember when Wiley came to us and said, can you write a book on creativity? They said, just don't write another book on creativity. There's too many. So we thought, well, let's not fall victim to not writing a book on creativity and not being creative. Let's be creative. So we came up with a creative theme, and that one is around a whodunit crime scene investigation, and we've used neuroscience and psychology from the content perspective. This one, the Innovation Race, well, it speaks for itself. It's a bit around a race, a travel, a journey. Not that the Amazing Race is anywhere near on my list of to do what shows, but it's a popular metaphor. So we want to travel around the world on it. Now, in terms of the actual
Differences?
That's the theme. In terms of the difference between creativity and innovation, a lot of companies come to me and they say, we just want the innovation to happen. But what they've got to realise is for innovation to happen, which is the practical doing of something, actually bringing something to market and making it be valuable and scalable. You can't have that without the creative thinking mindset. So you need the creative thinking mindset within people, within the organisation, to take something from here and take something from here and put it together. But that on its own is just ideas, and that's what this model's about. It starts with curiosity and imagination and ideation, which is the creativity side. And that's great, but that on its own doesn't lead to any practical implementable plan. On the innovation side, you need solutions, testing, prototyping, and some sort of application. The two have to work together. A lot of people do interchange the words. I'm not too religious about that, but you've got to see it's a process from creating ideas through to actually being able to make them scalable and from a business perspective, make them economical.
Great. Now, in the book, you talk about that we need to stop thinking like tourists and start thinking like travellers. So explain what the difference is in the context of innovation.
Well, I lived in Bali for 15 years, so I got to see the tourist and the traveller, and unfortunately many Australians go there and some of them are very embarrassing. But I think you'll find that a tourist is if you watch them come to Bali, they'll fly on Qantas, they'll then go and stay in a hotel called G'day's Hotel, they'll drink Australian beer, they'll watch Australian football on TV, they'll hang out with their Australians, they might wear a Bintan shirt, but they don't really understand the Balinese culture. They're just going there almost as a holiday. They could go anywhere. And so I call them tourists. They really, some of us call them yobbos, but they really don't want to understand the Balinese culture. They're just going to plonk themselves somewhere. And as a result, there's no exchange, there's no picking up of anything. They're not learning things from other people. The traveller, on the other hand, tries to immerse themselves into the culture and tries to understand, can I learn a different way of thinking? Can I look at something from a different perspective? Now, the absolute core of creative thinking, which precedes innovation, you need that empathy, that ability to look at something from the customer's perspective, to understand maybe there's a different way of doing it compared to the way I've always done it. So a traveller is out, you could say, and we've got down the bottom here, a traveller is an explorer. They're exploring different ways of doing things. They're understanding, they're looking for new ways of doing it. And on the other side, you've got a preserver, which is more the tourist. They want to hang on to what they've got. Now, I've used the example of a river, and this is a river of us rafting in Bhutan, which I'll talk about later on, is that a good river guide, a good racing car driver, a good snowboarder, a good airline pilot will use the entire track. So when you're coming down this river, you don't just stick to one side of the river. The guide will be looking at exploring both sides. A racing car driver would never just stay on the left-hand side of the road, the preservation side, but nor would he stay on the exploration side of the road. What we're saying, and I think this will be coming up in our next session, is it's really important to understand this paradox, that we need to actually use both. Yes,
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.